from the News Channel 5 Network. This is SCORE on Business.
Hey, welcome to SCORE on Business. I'm Pete Hendricks, a serial entrepreneur and your host for today. Hey, make sure and check out scorenashville.org. We have a lot of classes and things that are really good. Our first guest today, Norma Shirk, is the founder of Corporate Compliance Risk Advisor. She is an attorney who worked on employment law and issues as an in-house corporate attorney for years and ultimately struck out on her own. She now provides human resources consulting services for small businesses with up to 50 employees. And thanks for being here again,
Norma. Thank you so much for having me.
So tell us about one of your clients and how you've helped them.
One of my clients recently was very small. They only had maybe 5 employees, but they had won a big contract, and so they were going to have to scale up quickly.
Right.
And they realized they had no structure in place to do that. So when I came on board helping them, first we looked at the job descriptions. Did they match what was actually going to need to be done? Then we looked at how their hiring process worked and got some check-off sheets in place to make sure they went through all the steps. And then after that, we looked at other documents that they needed, other information such as an employee handbook.
Right.
And so they were able to move seamlessly into that contract, and now we stay in touch. Every couple of weeks we meet and kind of get a feel for what's on the horizon, what's coming up, and we can spot issues and work through them so that they can continue to grow without imploding.
Yeah, that's a great story. You know, entrepreneurs often don't, there's more to HR and laws and all that than folks realize.
There really is, and people's places are, their hearts are in the right place, but they don't always know what the right thing is.
Yeah.
For example, I work with employers that have less than 50 employees. The Family Medical Leave Act does not apply until you have at least 50 employees. And so I have small clients that think they have to give 12 weeks of unpaid leave for a medical condition. Their heart is in the right place, but they're not legally required to do that, and financially very few small businesses can have a piece of their workforce walking out for a minimum of 12 weeks.
Right. So, you know, one thing that's in the news lately has been sexual harassment. What are some basic concepts leaders can use to prevent sexual harassment?
Oh yeah, the sexual harassment thing is very interesting. It shows how culture has changed. I can admit that back when I started, a lot of the things that they're now saying you should not do were things that happened and you just sort of shrugged your shoulders.
Right.
So we as a community have changed and we have different expectations. And I think for companies what that means is, first of all, senior management has to buy into the fact that this is an issue, times have changed. It may have been okay last week, it may have been okay last year, but now it's not. And so think about how you can get your workforce to think about the issue of sexual harassment. For employees and pretty much anybody, ask yourself, whatever you're saying or doing, if you were watching that on a television screen or, God forbid, in a trial, how would that play with the jury? And if it's something where you're thinking, wow, that's probably not going to be a good idea, then it's probably not a good idea to do it. Don't say it. Don't do it, whatever it is.
You know, I think one thing you said that I really like is that senior management has to take ownership. But what is important to senior management is what is important to everybody. And well, not all, but for the most part, if there's no focus at the top, there's no focus at all.
If they don't show that it matters to them, it won't matter to anybody else, because the top always sets the tone. And I've worked for companies and I've advised companies where they had a great written policy on what they wouldn't tolerate, but that's not what people lived every day. The corporate culture didn't match what they had in writing.
Right.
And that was just worse than not having any written policy at all on sexual harassment.
You know, I would think for not that sexual harassment can't be women to men, though I'm guessing it's mostly men to women. I would think that, like for me, you know, I don't touch people that, you know,
Right.
I don't like off-color jokes anyway, but I don't say them. Those are things.
Right.
What are a couple of pointers for people who can keep in mind that are you probably don't want to do?
It's also one of the things that shows how society has changed. When we think about sexual harassment, we think about the boss making inappropriate comments to his female secretary and asking her out to dinner or whatever. And today, it's much more than that. It is the off-color joke. It can be male on male. It can be female on female. One of the big areas is with the gay community, that they are now being recognized for the sexual harassment that is traditional. So again, it's back to that, it's a reasonableness test. If someone made that comment to me, how would I feel?
Right.
And if you're thinking, gee, I would not want someone to say that to me, then don't say it to somebody else.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. So, when should a company create written HR policies, like an employee handbook?
With me working with small companies, my smallest client had 3 employees, and we did a handbook. And part of the reason for that is that it sets out the corporate culture. Here's what you can expect from us as an employee, and here's what you can expect from us as your employer. So you set the tone. I mean, yes, there's things in there about here's when you get paid and how you get paid and that kind of thing, but it is about creating that common context for everybody. When you're a new hire, you walk in the door and you're like, I know nothing about this company and they gave me a job, now what? So a handbook can help with that.
Right.
As you get more employees, about the point when you have 10 employees, I call it the crowd control point. Because at that point you can't make it up anymore. You have different personalities, it's harder to do the scheduling to make sure everything's covered. It's just easier to get everybody on the same page by having a handbook so everyone knows this is what's expected of me and what I need to expect from others.
So when I have been under the impression, and you can say if this is true or not, with the first employee, even having a, you know, kind of just a basic handbook that you could download would be an idea, because things, if it's not in the handbook as not being okay, then you really can't do that much. Is that a correct statement, or did I miss something?
Well, generally, obviously a handbook can't cover everything in every situation, but if you don't have something in there about how we want employees to respect each other and respect customers and things like that, yes, it's a given. But if you're looking at some point down the line saying to an employee, we're firing you because you lacked a respectful attitude toward others, they're going to go, okay, show me where it says that was part of my thing.
That's what I was trying to say. I didn't say that as clearly.
So part of the reason you have stuff in writing is, and that's back to expectations. You're our employee, here's what we expect from you. And if you cross a line, there's going to be a progressive discipline policy most times that says if you cross the line, we're going to let you know that, we're going to give you a chance to not do it again, and if you do, at some point we're going to go, okay, goodbye, you're gone. So it's about helping them understand, employees and employers, because there's also times you just don't know what the employer values. And that's where you find out.
Okay, good. So where can folks get an employee handbook so they don't have to write it themselves?
There's lots of templates out there. On the internet, there's all sorts of templates, a lot of them for free. If you do that for clients that I have or prospects that I have, I tell them, definitely go to an employment law attorney and make sure that that template you downloaded off the internet actually complies with Tennessee law.
Right.
All states have different requirements, and
Yeah.
you don't want to create a handbook in Tennessee that would be appropriate for, say, New York or Massachusetts or California, because
Right.
you're binding yourself. If it's in your handbook, you're bound by it.
Right.
So that's one option. It's a quickie fix.
Okay.
Other options, the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM. It's for HR professionals. They have a lot of sample documents and templates that their members can use as sort of a go-by, a guide.
Right.
An employment law attorney can help write them. I've got templates that I use that are compliant with Tennessee law, and so I can help my clients with
Awesome.
getting their handbooks in order.
Well, Nora, thanks so much for being here today. You've shared some great information.
Thank you so much for
Okay.
having me.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back.
All right.